Indian motorcycle sales are down for the second year in a row, and we're not talking single digit, we're talking double digit. It could be a game killer for Polaris Indians. Let's take a look and see what's going on with that Indian brand. Hello and welcome to Road Rush Nation. I'm Terry, your host here, and thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the channel. If you're a member of the nation, thank you so much. You have no idea what it means to me. And if you'd like to be a member of the nation, hit that freebie button right there and you'll be part of us. So let's get into the situation with Indian motorcycles. Now, first of all, I love bikes of all types. I've owned Suzuki's, Yamahas, Hondas, and of course Harley is my favorite for being my street bike. But what's going on with Indian is a little concerning. What's going on with Harley's big competitor, Indian? Of course, we know it's owned by Polaris. It's not just Indian motorcycles. But for the second year in a row, sales are way down. Now, they don't sell the volume of bikes like Harley does. So when they have a double-digit decrease, ooh, that's not good. So let's delve into Polaris Indian and see what's going on and really find out about these numbers, because it's not what you think. We'll talk a little bit about the history of Indian and when Polaris jumped in, because really the Indian bikes that you know today are not that old. So let's go take a look at Indian. Now, Indian Motorcycles is that iconic brand that's owned and revamped by Polaris Industries, and it's rapidly expanded their global sales in the last decades before it stalled in growth in 2022. And a lot of that had to do with, when the world shut down because of COVID. But before I get into the numbers, I want to explain the difference in the numbers that I'm reporting. So most manufacturers, when they give their annual reports, they're giving their report on their sales from invoices that they give to dealers, not what the consumer's purchasing. And what I'm reporting on is the numbers that are being registered vehicles. So those are the bikes that are being sold by the dealer. This is really going to give you an indication of what's happening with the sales for the brand. So I just wanted to make that clear before we get into these numbers, and then you're going to find out that it's not such a great picture currently. So following the 2021 all-time record with 36,634 global sales, in 2022, sales declined in double digit to 30,752. That's a minus of 16.2%. And in 2023, it declined again at 30,000 units. So sales have been very steady both in North America and in Europe, in regions where over 90% of global sales are gained. In other areas, sales declined 10% in Asia, China, Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. It's still not good in Latin America. So next year's perspectives are not so positive. So if you think about what they're offering, it doesn't look very good. While the competitors are, getting a little more dynamic on what they're offering. There can be many factors that are affecting the downward sales in Indian brands. Now, the good thing about Indian is it's owned by Polaris. So Polaris can help absorb some of that decrease where it's not its standalone manufacturer, which is good for all you Indian owners. So there's that backup of a major corporation that can help absorb some of the issues. One of the things that's hurting Indian currently is the excitement over the revamp of the original brand. But see, it never was the original. Polaris has never been part of the original Indian brand. Indian started, yes, in 1901, the original Indian, but it was never even called that. It was called Hindi Motorcycle Company, and 3 years later they changed it to Indian. And yes, it had its great growth. It was one of the top-notch bike sellers. But then in 1953, it all ended. And Indian went bankrupt. Manufacturing completely stopped. And for 50 years, there was a void. Yes, you had custom builders that had used the Indian brand name and were trying to revamp it and build off of the excitement and history of the original Indian brand. One of the things that's really hurt the current Indian brand is that they had to start from scratch. Polaris wanted to have a motorcycle line, and that's where they started the Victory. And actually, the Victory was not even built in-house. The motor was not even in-house. There was actually a couple guys who were trying to rejuvenate the Henderson motorcycle brand, and they had extreme success with the motor that they were creating. Well, Polaris went, purchased their rights to that motor, put it in the Victory. And if you recall, Victory had a great reputation on the motor. Well, it wasn't Polaris. So you lose a lot of that knowledge when you buy something you haven't created. Then Polaris decided, you know what, we need to really concentrate on our opportunity to purchase the Indian name. And that's what they did. So they killing the Victory brand, which I was really kind of disappointed because it really brought something different to the market. It wasn't like any other bike out there. They killed that in 2017, and they really focused on the Indian brand. Indian really needs to step up their game, redesign, but there's also something they can't control, and that's the economy. If you look at what's happening in the vehicle industry, namely the automotive industry, you'd understand what I'm saying. There is a huge problem with repossessions, give-backs, which is when somebody gives back a car to a dealership because they can't afford it anymore. And banks are no longer giving out these loans that are astronomical. It's hurting everything. But in the car industry, they are at repossession rates since 2010. And if you recall what the economy was like back in 2010, you'd understand where we're going. And motorcycles are the secondary. So they're going to feel the impact second. Most people are needing a car to get around for work, not a motorcycle. So that's also hurting. Polaris only created the Indian line in 2011. So if you look at it, the brand is not that old and hasn't been established that long. Do I think they're going to pull through it? Heck yes. But I think they're going to have some growing pains here in the next little bit, some rough years. And if they don't get leadership that looks at the future for Indian and redoing what they have, really quality, looking at their quality of what's going on, I think they'll pull through and they'll come in, but it's going to be really tough for them to ever overpower Harley. You can't compare the two between Polaris buying a brand that was completely dead, no manufacturing, not even working for 50 some odd years. And they bought the name from a guy who was trying to revamp it, didn't have the financial backing, and he only had the name for like 5 years. So you can't really compare the two. Really, Polaris is being brand new. Do I think they were smart in buying the Indian name? Heck yeah, because it gives you that already established legend, but they aren't the legend. They're having to refigure out how to build and maintain and respect that legend. It's going to take some time. They've got to get the right people aboard to be able to do that. Do I think they'll do it? Yes, but it's going to be bumpy. Hopefully you found this interesting and made you just kind of wonder what's going on, but watch what's happening in the motorcycle market across the board. It's a little bothersome what's going to be happening. It's going to be a rough couple years, I think, for every manufacturer. Thanks again for stopping by. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to be a member of the nation, don't forget to hit that magic subscribe button. Ride safe, and I hope to catch you on the highways.